All right, we are live. Hello, welcome to May's Book of the Month discussion for the Diversity is Lit book club. We will be discussing Witches Steeped in Gold by Ciannon Smart, and we have. Oh, I think I didn't do like the countdown, so sorry if it cut it off. I think it started. The YouTube video started a little bit after I started talking. But anyways, welcome. We are discussing Witches Steeped in Gold. We don't have two of our co-hosts with us, but I will let my other lovely co-hosts introduce themselves. If you don't know me, I'm HollyDavis. I'm a YA and middle grade fantasy writer, hoping to be traditionally published. And I'm happy to be here as always.
Hi everyone, I'm Heather Venkat. I am a middle grade and young adult fantasy and contemporary writer, hoping to be traditionally published. And I am happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Vanessa. I'm a YA fantasy, paranormal, and horror author. Happy to be here as well. And excited to kind of share with you guys something Holly said I could share with you guys on this channel. Is a YouTube project that I am going to be working on. And this is for writers. So if any of you are writers out there, you might want to check this out. I plan on doing a series where I do one interview a month from someone from a diverse background. So I really want to help writers to be able to write diverse characters more authentically. And so I will be interviewing people from diverse backgrounds and getting their experiences and, what they think writers should know when it comes to writing a character from that background, and what are some stereotypes to be aware of and avoid. So that's what I'm doing. It's kicking off this month in just a couple of weeks. Since June is Pride Month, I am going to be interviewing someone from the LGBTQ community who identifies as pansexual. And so if you want to learn about pansexuality, you can join. It'll be on my channel, which is just Vanessa Marie. And it'll be a live stream on June 17th, I believe, is what I said, 17th, at 6 p.m. Pacific time. So if anyone wants to come and learn more about that.
That's awesome. I will totally be there for that. That sounds like wonderful and such like an awesome project and like resource for the community. So I'm glad that you're starting that. And just to know, everyone's channels are linked down below. So Vanessa's YouTube channel is linked down below if you want to subscribe to make sure you don't miss that. And
that's exciting, Vanessa.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Me too. All of the videos you've come out with about diversity and sensitivity readers is very, very helpful. So I've enjoyed those videos. So, and we also have some exciting news that I haven't officially announced yet, but we are planning our 1-year anniversary party. So you guys heard it here first, and I will be spreading it everywhere once we have the details set about the exact time. We have the date. But yeah, we're gonna have like a fun party to celebrate, and so I'm super excited about that. Okay, so to kick off our discussion, I have to give my disclaimer that we will be talking spoilers. So if you have not read Witches Steeped in Gold and you are interested in reading it and don't want to be spoiled, then click out of this video, read the book, and then come back and listen to our discussion. If you have read it, then feel free to join in, but there will be spoilers. So sorry, if you can hear Kyrie snoring in the background.
I can hear your dog snoring, yes.
She just quieted down because I said her name. So first, and we've been talking a little bit about this book a little bit beforehand, but the first question that we always ask is, what are your general overall thoughts on the book? I could go first. I don't know if someone else wants to jump in first. Otherwise, I'll kick things off.
I feel like I have a lot to say just for this one question. So maybe you go first, because I feel like I would.
Okay. So it definitely wasn't my kind of book. It wasn't for me. And I felt really bad about that because I really wanted to like this book. And like, I've loved all of the books that we've read so far in the book club. And so I kind of felt bad that I like wasn't enjoying it as much as I wanted to, but I know that that's just how the reader life goes. Not everyone's going to love every book. So I did give this 3 out of 5 stars. But honestly, if I wasn't reading this for the book club, I probably would have DNF'd it, which also doesn't happen very often. Because if I'm not going to give a book a 4 or a 5, I usually stop reading because there's lots of other books I want to read. So I feel bad saying that because that's why, like, if I'm talking about a book, it's usually because I like it because I finished it.
For those who don't know what DNF means.
Yes, did not finish. Yes, I did not finish. I would DNF it. I wouldn't finish it. But so for me, when I first started reading it, I was like immediately really overwhelmed by the writing style. I usually don't like very thick writing. So I kind of compared the way I felt at first to reading Witches Steeped in Gold to when I started reading These Violent Delights, because These Violent Delights was a lot heavier in its prose, but it was very easy to read and follow what was happening. And so I obviously loved that book. But with Witches, it was so much that it was just overwhelming because there was just so much vocabulary, so many different names. The world building was very intense, and it was just a little bit too much for me, where I just felt so confused while reading. Where like there's sometimes I would look at a paragraph and there'd be like 7 new names or terms, and I'm like, is this a place? Is this a person? So that kind of carried me throughout the whole novel, where it was really, really hard for me to just follow along. It made it hard for me to like want to keep reading. I was wanting to like skip ahead. So it was like, it went beyond the overly descriptive prose that I'm used to. And like the other part of it was that I couldn't connect to the dual POVs. I felt like Jasmine and Iriah, sorry if I'm butchering their names, but
no, that's correct.
Yeah, that their voices were very similar, and so like I didn't feel like there was enough of a difference between them, so that kind of pulled me out because I didn't really feel like I connected to either of the main characters, and that's not good either. So it was both like the hard to read writing and me not being invested in the characters, which made it a struggle for me. So that's my general overall thoughts on the book.
Yeah, I can kind of piggyback off of that, because that's I had very similar thoughts. Like I kind of struggled, and I didn't want to struggle throughout it. I had I think it maybe was related a little bit to the pacing at times. Was kind of slow really until like, I mean, there were parts that were faster, but I felt like it could have been condensed in some areas. And I felt like some aspects of the world building weren't, like, even though it was really rich, it wasn't like fully explained, or it seemed unique, but they didn't really flesh it out, or she didn't really flesh it out. Like, even in the beginning, when I first read, like, I think it's on page 2 or 3, she talks about like Joshial or whatever, the monster-sized lizard. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. But then I mean, maybe it was mentioned and I missed it, but like then I didn't really see any more like kind of creatures, or I didn't really see them return to that concept. I don't even know if this creature showed up again. Maybe it did, and I missed it. But I was a little bit disappointed in that. I started actually, so as you can see, I have the physical book, and I started to read it, and it was like I said, I was struggling, and I left my bookmark where I stopped at page 46, and I was like, I need to listen to this. I said, I'm not really like feeling as connected to it. Maybe that'll change if I listen to the audiobook. So then I actually finished the rest of the book by listening to the audiobook. I don't think it improved upon the things that I was struggling with. Like, you know, I was like Jasmine and Araya, like they were in and of themselves, you know, interesting characters with like, you know, their own goals and sort of like competing priorities and things like that. But they still felt kind of flat to me, which was like kind of disappointing. I really wanted to see a little bit more of the character like building. And then the last thing I wanted to comment on was similar to what Holly said. There were a lot of other characters, but like I felt like in my mind, like lots of them weren't really memorable. Like I forgot a lot of their names, and like I don't remember who this character is, which I didn't want to feel that way, but that's what I did. I did finish the book though. I read the whole thing, so I was able to give myself the full picture before I like, you know, fully kind of made my decision about overall how I felt about it. But unfortunately, it didn't change from the beginning to the end for me.
Yeah. I'm glad we're kind of on the same page with this month, because I thought I was going to be the only one who was just like, no, it didn't work for me, which is disappointing because this was one of my most anticipated books of 2021. So I really, really wanted to like it and enjoy it. But I agree with everything both of you said. It was just too confusing, and like there was so many new terms and words and people to keep track of and follow, and I'm like looking at the back to try and see, okay, what does this word mean again? And every time I have to do that, it just pulls you out of the story, and I just couldn't really get into it. And so I, you know, hopefully this works for some people. It didn't for me. Just the writing was, I don't like you, Holly. I'm not a reader that likes very descriptive, overly prose type of writing. And so, you know, that was part of it. The pacing was part of it. And then the characters, it was just, One, I couldn't even really tell Ira and Jasmine apart. I would start reading one of their chapters and then I have to flip back and see, okay, whose point of view am I in again? So they weren't distinct enough for me. And honestly, I was just indifferent to all of the characters in here, which is disappointing. Because I know one of the questions we usually ask is who was our favorite and least favorite character? And I was thinking about this question and I was like, I don't really care about any of them. I don't have a favorite. So yeah, I definitely think like you said, if it wasn't for the for us reading it in the book club, I definitely would have DNF'd it a long time ago. It was a struggle to get through.
Yeah. I'm sorry that we all had a similar experience. I mean, yeah, I don't DNF books very often, so it doesn't feel good, Yeah. And we all know, like, I mean, clearly Ciannon worked hard on this book. Like, it's a very large book, so she did put work into the words, and the world building is so expansive, but it was just, really hard to follow. Dana is here. Hi, Dana. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday.
Hello, welcome. Did you read Witches? And what did you think about it? As far as...
I do want to say, I guess we could maybe say, like, if there was anything that we did like about it. Just like you, Vanessa, I actually didn't even put an answer down for the question of who's my favorite and least favorite character, because I was like, I can't really talk about this in great detail. I don't feel strongly about anyone, unfortunately. So I didn't even answer that question. I mean, this cover is gorgeous. I just wanted to say the cover is really, really beautiful. And one thing, so the things that I did like, in the audiobook, I do think that they had, I couldn't actually tell if it was one person doing both of their voices or if it was two different people doing their voices, but the narrator, she or they were, they had, like the very authentic Jamaican accent, because this is like it's like a Jamaican kind of fantasy. So I was glad kind of that they did that because it was more authentic to sort of the basis of the fantasy. I did like that. I did like how they narrated it, but I agree with you, like the voices themselves. I think, and I can't remember a lot of the dual POV books that I read, how often they switch between, but this one I think was literally every other chapter it changed, and maybe it would have been better to, I'm wondering if it would have made it a little bit better to have a couple chapters in just one of the characters' points of view and then switch to the next one, so it wasn't so like blended and choppy, and that maybe could have helped with the pacing as well. I'm not really sure. Maybe even, I don't really know. Pacing is a difficult thing just overall, and it's something I need to fix in my current story. So but I did like the narrators. I thought the audiobook was well done, and oh, I'm forgetting the other thing that I wanted to say. I mean, I did kind of like how she made the Alumbrar and the Obia, like, no one was really good or evil. Like, I feel like it was a good and a bad thing, like, because it kind of shows, like, everyone is a little gray. But then I think maybe the secondary effect to that was that then we couldn't really, like, cheer for, or boo, you know, as strongly as we would maybe like to. So maybe that was not a good thing. But I did almost like that, because it you don't see that all the time. You kind of see, like, good and evil, and then it's like, well, they're kind of good, but they're doing bad stuff too. And so it's like, so I did kind of think that was interesting and unique.
Yeah, that is a good point. Dana said she's listening because she writes fantasy romance. And she says, I have a translation list in the back of my book, and I'm now thinking maybe I could have the speaker use the word, a character translate it, and then not use it very often. Yeah, I am reading Nightwing by Renee Dugan. This is the third book in the Star Chaser saga, and they have their own kind of language too, so there's some vocabulary, but like if you look at the back of the book, this is how many they have. So it's not really a lot, and like kind of you can figure it out in context, because it'll be like great love, uncle, brother. So like when someone's introduced, you're like, you know, you're kind of able to deduce what it means, but it's not so overwhelming. So I think that that's a good idea. Whereas witches,
I think that's what was missing from.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, witches didn't have the vocabulary list, but this is like the familial vocations undertaken by firstborn daughters at birth, which already in and of itself, I'm like, what does that even mean? But you know, so there's just a lot, and so yeah.
And there's in the beginning, they have the different orders listed. So there's like, she kind of starts you off with it, with the Alumbrar and the Obia.
Yeah.
But I actually forgot that this was here, so I didn't reference it. I actually only just remembered it.
I didn't even remember that was there at all, but yeah, I think it can be done well, like, because that makes a story feel more authentic when there is some of that vocabulary. But I think there's a limit to that. Just, you know, just like, you know, the term or the phrase, I lose the breath, you know, I didn't know I was holding, like now that's become a whole trope, and it's become overused because it's a thing that's just used over and over again. I know that's a whole different topic, but like something similar where it's like, oh, this is like, you know, this is cool, but then it can be overdone. So if you just have like way too much, I think too, some vocabulary, when it's like a word that's based in the real like world, or like a real term instead of a made up vocabulary word, that makes it easier to remember too. I'm trying to think of an example. Can't think of one off the top of my head, but kind of like in the Celestial Code, my work in progress, like there's like these people that are being trained to be these magical beings, and they're called potentials. And it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. They have the potential to be this, instead of like, these are Askanars, or, you know, or something like that. So like that helps you remember. So when there's so many of these like different crazy terms.
The tributes, Hunger Games.
Yeah.
Hunger Games has very good like
tracker jackers, tributes. Yeah, exactly. So districts. I know that's, yeah. But yeah, so when you're constantly having to flip back, like Vanessa said she was doing. So it was more information they could have been worked into the actual story instead of having explanations in the back of the book. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I did like was that there were like high stakes, because it's like, oh, the yielders that were like put into the trials, it was like, well, if you're not deemed worthy, you're going to die. And so it was, you know, there were those high stakes. So there is that. The other thing I did like, even though it did take a long time for it to get there, I didn't look at exactly which page number this happened, but it was quite farther than I think it should have been when Jasmine and Ira actually teamed up and said, we are going to work together to kill the Doyen. And it was like, yes, this is awesome. But then it took so long to get there. But there were those nuances where like they did the shook bargain to like, okay, we're going to work together to kill Doyen. But then like Jasmine still didn't trust Ira, you know, so there were kind of things. And then like the whole thing with like Curdan, you know.
They pronounced it like Kierden.
Kierden. Okay, cool. Oh yeah, I forgot. You know how it's pronounced because of the
they
audio.
said Iraya and Kierden.
Okay, yeah. And so it like reminded me of like characters in like the Gildan ones where I was just like, is this person good or bad? I don't know. It could go either way. Or like in Legendborn, you know, like the person's like, don't be a douche, you know. So it's like you didn't know. So I did kind of like that aspect of like knowing whether to really trust him or not. Yes, this is the author's first book, her debut novel. So yeah, it's just interesting. Like this book that I am devouring is self-published, and this one is not. The last book that I had DNF'd was traditionally published, and I got out of my slump by reading Evelyn's Number by Bethany Atazadeh, indie author, self-published, and that got me into her books, and her books are amazing. And I don't even look at the other authors' books. So it's, I just at least like that, because like it has shown me that like there are really good self-published authors, and not every you're not going to like every traditionally published author's book.
And maybe her next books are going to be stronger,
right.
Or, you know, we'll click with them, or maybe it just doesn't work for us. And here's my perspective, is that there are so many books out there, and there's so many books that I want to read, that it's like, I won't feel bad, like, you know, following other authors. Like, I do want to support, especially debut authors. It's difficult. Sometimes, I actually was telling Holly this because I had finished Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab recently and loved it. But I told her Victoria Schwab would not have been able to write that book, as her debut, or even her second or third book. So I do want to support debut authors, because I do think that sometimes their later books are stronger, or the story that they tell is very different. You know, sometimes they branch out into adult or middle grade. And so there's the potential that it doesn't mean like her next book I'm not going to like either, but it also means like we have the freedom to, you know, read whatever we want, which is great. And so I don't think it's necessarily, you know, a bad thing. It just means it just didn't work for us. It did work for some people, but
yeah, Dana has a good point. I think traditionally published books have to fit into a mold, and that kills the story sometimes. Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. And I think also, kind of just on the topic of traditional and indie publishing, I think that, you know, it's starting to, I think people are starting to realize that there are a lot of good indie published books, because I think indie publishing before had sort of a stigma around it where it wasn't that creative books. Um, but I think people are starting to see that, it might take some time to find the gems in there, but there are some great indie published books, and there's some traditional published books that, just doesn't work. So
Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Really good point. Was there anything that you did like, or like scenes, or just anything that that you liked, Vanessa?
yeah, I do agree with you that when Ira and Jasmine finally meet up, that's when I started becoming a little bit interested again. So I did I wish it would have happened a lot sooner. It felt like it took forever to get to that point. But I did like that. And then the part where Kieran's with them in like the jungle, and like he has to go off ahead, and they're like attacked and have to help each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kieran comes back and he's like, it was a test. You guys are fine. I did it to see like he kind of did it to test them. And so that part I thought was kind of interesting. That got me into it a little bit. And with Kieran, I feel like there was a lot of, because there were other characters, like again, there's so many I can't keep track of who said what, but I remember there was characters that were saying, you can't really trust Kieran, like, I don't know, you shouldn't trust them. And so you're kind of given that clue he's gonna betray them.
Mm-hmm.
So you see that coming, but I don't know. And that's the thing, I had like mixed feelings about the betrayal and stuff, because I'm like, normally I like betrayals and books. I like seeing that twist, and being like, oh my gosh, I really liked you, how could you do this to me? Like, I don't like it, but at the same time I'm kind of like, you had me fooled, you were good, you were really good. So I usually like betrayals for the most part, but I don't know, with this one, like with a lot of the book, I was just kind of indifferent to it as well. And I don't know if that's because, like I said, they kind of hinted at it early on, so I kind of knew it was coming.
Yeah, that's how that's what I was thinking. I feel like because he was already kind of like suspected, like he was already like on the chopping block. So like when it was revealed, it was like, oh yeah, okay, like it could have gone either way. So it wasn't as like left field. There wasn't enough like breadcrumbs. It was kind of more like thrown at you, I guess,
Yeah.
to know.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like this book was beta read at all, or was it just pushed into the mold? I don't know. I assume it was beta read, since I mean, Ciannon Smart is also a Pitch Wars mentor. Or I don't know if she also is author mentor match, but
I'm not sure.
So
because usually, like in the the acknowledgments, they talk about people who have read it, but I admit I didn't read the acknowledgments. I'm trying to see if it looks like there were some friends or people that she knew. It looks like there were some people who maybe read it, but it looks like she was part of Pitch Wars in 2017. So in a way, I think there were some beta readers. I don't know if it was like at what point they read it, but yeah, that's a good question too to ask.
Also, to go with that, it brings up my thoughts on that video that I shared with you guys in the group. I saw a reviewer who was born and raised in Jamaica review this book, and her thoughts on it were, she kind of talked about how like the language wasn't used the way that it should have been. It was off, and I actually saw another reviewer on Goodreads kind of say the same thing. They said they're from Jamaica as well, and like the language that was used was like the way the phrases were. It seemed like it was written for an international audience, is what they said. So it just made me wonder, like, I kind of wanted to see more reviews. I wish I could find more reviews from people who do live in Jamaica, who grew up in Jamaica, to see what their thoughts on the book was. Because from the two that I saw on Goodreads and then on YouTube, it was kind of like not the best representation.
Yeah, I'm glad that you shared that video. Here, let me pull it and drop it into the comments. Because it was really interesting to hear from her. And we've make sure it's here. Okay. Do you guys see it? Is it there?
I'm not sure. I don't have it open.
Okay, there it is. Okay, I just want to make sure. There is such a lag. So, but we've read a couple books with like the West African and or like from Ghana with A Song of Wraiths and Ruin, and like that was done really well. So, it's definitely something that when it's done well, it's something that is like praised and that shows that respect. But this booktuber was talking about they're not even saying man and cha, and like that's like what Jamaicans say when they make fun of people who are trying to like sound Jamaican. Like they're like, we don't say man, so that's kind of disappointing. So and yeah, that's a little bit sad to hear, but it was a very interesting watch. So the scenes that I did like were I liked when Iraya had the impediment glyphs on her, and she like wanted to get rid of them to like take their control away from her, but then there was like an alarm on them somehow. And like then the Alumbrar like used the like voodoo doll, like I think it was called like a deleterious doll, to like restrain her from attacking, and then they put more glyphs on her. Like that was a cool scene that like really stuck out to me, and there weren't very many that was able to kind of like keep my attention, but that one definitely, I liked that one. And then, of course, when Ira kills the Doyen, it's like, yes, okay, we've got some redemption. There is, you know, something, you know, the evil villain is vanquished. But then she found out that the Obeya, which is who, you know, her kind, helped the Doyen kill her mom and dad, which was really interesting. So I think that that probably will be fleshed out in the sequel. I won't be reading the sequel, but, you know, you know, at least it seems like there will be a good setup for a sequel, because there's lots of things that she can, places that she can go with where she left the book. So, now
I had a couple quotes.
I was gonna
really funny
ask if you guys have any lines or quotes, and there were quite a few good ones for, you know.
The funny thing is that usually when I pick quotes, they're very long, and the two that I picked, one from Jasmine and one from Mariah, are short. But I liked it did have, there was a little bit of personality in those. The one that I liked from Jasmine was, "I'm a big witch, I can take care of myself." That one made me laugh. And then
I like that.
The other one that I liked from Araya was, "I didn't leave prison to be a hero."
Oh, that one.
And I liked that a lot. So, you know, there were a couple little things where times when like their sort of unique personalities came out. But yeah, I didn't have a ton of quotes. I usually have a lot of quotes, but I'll let you guys talk about your quotes.
I don't really have much quotes either. Part of this, you know, I did listen to the audiobook. So I was trying to see what quotes, like, because you know how on Goodreads people will add quotes from the book. On like there's a quote section where you can see a bunch of quotes from the book. And I was trying to look to see if there was that, to see to remind myself what quotes were in there. And I don't really see any, but there is one quote that I'm seeing, which it says, "From light we are born, and to light we cleave." So I do like that. I don't remember.
Yeah, I really like that a lot. I had a couple. One was right on page 4 that Jasmine had said, "I'm not a liar by nature, but tonight I must sell the sky to magi who know it's free." And I was like, whoa, that's really cool. It's like trying to sell the sky. Like, I forget the context of it, maybe magic, but I thought that was really cool. And then on page 149, I don't remember who said it, but someone had said, "The Mutta doesn't give us trials we can't handle." And like that just stood out to me because it made me think of the Bible verse, which is like, God doesn't give you more than you can handle or whatever. I forget the exact Bible verse, but I was just like, oh, that's a spin on the Bible verse. And then who was it who said this? Ira said on page 167, "You never know what the past," or maybe it was Delise, "You never know what the past will teach you about the present." So I like that. I think that was Delise. I did like Delise for where she would say like, "Oh, hi, just Ira," or whatever. Like, I did like her because that was a cute thing that like she carried through.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, when she's like, "Just Ira. Hi, just Ira." And let's see if I have any more. Oh yeah, so this one is on page 110 by Ira. Ika might, who's talking? I don't even know, but Ika might benefit from you, but that doesn't mean you are not expendable. She sits back and bridges her fingers. You are but a little axe, and it's best to keep that in mind. If not for yourself, then for your order. You understand? And then Ira thinks, I understand that a little axe can take down an entire forest, blow by blow, tree by tree. So I did like that because it was like, oh yeah, she's just one person. She's just this little axe, but she can do big things if she, just a little bit at a time, and she can, chop down the forest. So
yeah. I had missed that one, but yeah, I like the ones you picked.
Thanks. So yeah, any other thoughts on the book? Oh, here we go. Dana says, when I think of the God never gives you more than you handle, I laugh. God pushes you over your limits all the time, but he always gives you the tools to be victorious. I like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I always try to remember that, oh yeah, I wouldn't be going through this if I couldn't handle it. And I'm like, no, this sucks. No, this is hard.
Yeah, I've always heard I've heard people say that it's not that he doesn't give you more than he does, but it's because it's to have you lean on him to get through it. Is what I've heard others say. It's he does give you more than you can handle sometimes, but that's so you lean on him and trust him. Because if he didn't, you would probably never have to turn to him for anything.
Good point.
That's so true.
I don't think I have any other thoughts.
Vanessa?
No.
In the book, what was the context of her quote? Let me see. That was on page 149. Another Ira quote. Apparently, I like picking Ira quotes. Looks like she was climbing terrain. She was climbing up the side of a cliff or something, or a rooftop. The drop from the bohio's roof wouldn't be fatal, but one look down and queasiness punches through me all the same. Of all fears to have, one of mine has to be being far from the ground. And then the Mutta doesn't give us trials we can't handle, Nana Clark would have said. So that was talking about her fear of heights. That was a good question. But yeah, so I think there's always something that we can learn from books. So I think we definitely learned a lot from this one. Both things that you should and shouldn't do. So Dana, thanks for joining us to get some insights into these things. And if you're watching the replay, definitely let us know your thoughts on the book, because we would love to know. And I wish I had, usually I have the actual physical book of our next book club pick. So for June, we are reading Sunburnt Veils. Oh no, you have the ebook, Heather. Otherwise, I was like, oh, Heather can hold it up. And this is by Sarah Hagedusty. And yeah, it's about like Islamophobia, a heroine who wears a hijab. So I thought it would be a good change of pace to read a contemporary, you know, something with a little less world building. So I'm glad that this was picked, and hopefully, you know, we'll enjoy this book. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for joining us. Again, please follow my lovely co-hosts, Vanessa and Heather. Vanessa is going to be having a diversity series interviewing different diverse authors. The first one's going to be an LGBTQ author. So,
well, they're not authors, just someone from that.
From the community.
Right.
Yeah, to help with writers writing from that person.
Oh.
Beautiful. Cat. Well, thank you for joining us, and we will see you in the next discussion. All right.
Bye.
Bye.